Welcome back to the Investor Professor podcast. This is Dr. Ryan Peckham. This is episode 27. And on today's episode, of course, we're going to talk about what happened in the market this week, but the majority of what we're going to discuss is going to be over our 2022 goals. So 2022, we see you. We are coming for you. We are going to be prepared. We're going to be methodical, and we're going to have a plan of action. So that's what we're going to cover today. We're going to review some of the tips, some of the strategies that you need to lay down so that you have the most productive year that you've ever had. So without further ado, man, let's get to work. Well, welcome back, everybody. Hope to have a great show for you again today. This is a day late. I've been traveling around the wonderful state of Texas, seeing clients, getting to have dinners with people, seeing some people I haven't seen since pre-COVID. So that's always a rewarding experience to get to go see the people you work for and the families that you're impacting. And so that's the reason that we're a little bit late this week, but we'll get right back on track. So stock market this week had a better week, especially after the 2 weeks that we'd had. We see a little bit of bounce back action. I think the S&P 500 closed at all-time highs, if I'm not mistaken. So the S&P 500, which is a great measure of the overall economy. Looking here, all-time high, 4712. And remember, you can always take part in the S&P 500 just by buying the SPY, right? The easiest way to invest. You'll hear Warren Buffett and others say, hey, if you don't want to invest in, if you don't want to do the research in stocks, if you don't want to go through the trouble of trying to do your homework and doing all those things, buying the ETF, the exchange traded fund of the S&P 500 is a great way to go. You participate in the U.S. economy without doing a whole lot. So the SPY is the easiest way to do that. So we did see a little bit of a bounce back this week. The market is starting to price in the Federal Reserve, decreasing the bond buying that they've been doing, the tapering, if you will, which we discussed last week. You're going to see, we're going to hear more from that. So on the 15th of this week, Jay Powell and the Fed are going to talk, and they're going to discuss this further, which will be important for us to listen. So we will definitely be talking about that next week once we hear what they say. But the market's looking like it's pricing in about 2 to 3 rate hikes starting somewhere in the middle of next year. So 2022 is definitely going to be about interest rates, and then we'll have the midterm elections. But when you look at these, we look at some of these big, some of our, companies that we've discussed, and you look at Apple. I mean, Apple has just been on fire the last month. I mean, in the last month alone, Apple has gone from $148 a share to $179. One of the biggest moves that Apple's had in a long time. And there's reports that suppliers of theirs are, that they don't have enough product. They're trying to meet the demand, and they just, that there's a huge demand for the new phones. But interesting enough, Apple is about to cross $3 trillion market cap for the largest company in the world, which I think many of us have a hard time fathoming how much money that actually is. I mean, $3 trillion. And it wasn't that long ago, maybe 12 to 18 months ago, that Apple was the first $1 trillion company. And now we're looking at this saying that they're almost worth $3 trillion. Pretty substantial. So, we got to make sure that they have the earnings to be able to back this up. Their PE ratio is approaching 32. And if you remember, that's price over their earnings. And so we're going to need to see some good earnings out of Apple to be able to, to hold up this price of theirs. This is one of the highest PE ratios they've had in a long time, which could mean that their share price is running a little bit ahead of the company. But the fourth quarter, the Christmas quarter, if you will, is always known as one of their best quarters. So we'll see. But Apple has definitely had, if you've owned Apple for the previous month, you have had a really good month on a company that normally doesn't have this kind of move. But we're also seeing, as we discussed last week, that with interest rates rising, potentially rising, and this kind of flight to safety, what better way than to put more money with the largest company in the world that has the largest cash, one of the largest cash hoards of any company and is in really good shape financially. So we see this kind of shift from some of the higher growth names that have done so well over the previous, 18 months since COVID started, or 2 years now almost, 2 years since COVID started, and this move back into kind of the safer, stronger financial companies of the world. And so that will probably continue. If you look at some of the quote stay-at-home stocks, the Pelotons, those kind of companies, the Rokus, they have definitely pulled back substantially. And so at some point, there could be some value there, but it's kind of, you don't want to catch a falling knife, if you will, right? So you see a stock that's fallen substantially and you go, oh man, this thing's fallen. It can't fall any further. Oh, it can. They can always fall further than you think they're going to. And we refer to that as trying to catch a falling knife, right? You don't want to get cut on the way down. So if you do, decide to be a little bit riskier and to pick up some of these, make sure you're using a stop or something that can limit your downside. Don't forget to use stops. They are your friend. So, and I guess as I say that, I should say, right, I'm not your financial advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please consult your financial advisor before making any moves, and past performance is not indicative of future results. I'm starting to get more comfortable saying that over and over and over and over again. So, with that being said, I want to spend the majority of the time this week talking about 2022, talking about your goals, talking about strategies that you're going to need to make this the best year that you've ever had. And so, without further ado, let's get started on goal talk. So, fortunately or unfortunately for you, my favorite holiday of the year is always New Year's. I love the thought of turning over a new leaf, getting started on new goals and working towards something, basically being a builder of your life. So, you go back to episode 2, we talked about goals, but that was a long time ago. That was, I think, back in May. And so with New Year's approaching, I did want to spend some time on goals and discuss this with you. And do you remember a couple of weeks ago, I talked about starting in gratitude and basically just writing down some things that you're thankful for, so that you can kind of see the progress that you've already made, and it gives you, a sense of, hey, I did something, I did okay, right? And so when you look at setting your goals for 2022, you have to think about some things. Obviously, you think about, are they measurable? Is it something that you can look at later on and be able to measure to see if you've made progress or not? And there's a couple different ways that you can do it. You can look at being balanced, right? So there's some strategies that I find that work better or worse depending on where you're at in your life. But, if you're looking for balance, you can set 5 business goals. You can set 5 financial goals. You can set, 3 to 5 physical goals, 3 to 5 mental goals. And we'll kind of go through these. And then once you've done that, you can look at that list of all these different areas and you can say, okay, based on these, where's my top ones, right? So that's definitely a strategy. But I do want to emphasize something. If you have something big going on in your life, you're not always going to be able to be balanced all the time. Like, greatness doesn't come from being well balanced. There are going to be times in your life, if you have a super big goal that you're trying to reach, you're going to have to be unbalanced for a little bit, right? You're going to have to turn friends down for lunch or going out, or, all these extracurricular activities. You're going to have to be a little bit unbalanced for a while. Now, you can't be unbalanced forever, but for a little while you can. I love to travel. A lot of my former students don't believe me when I say that I didn't take a single vacation in my 20s. And that is true. There's a couple reasons for that. The number one being financially, I could not afford it. Like, I was, going to graduate school. My wife was going to graduate school. And every dime we had went into that because I didn't want any student loans. I didn't want any debt. So the main part of that was that, was financial, but I was also looking at trying to enter the financial business, trying to enter the investment business. And I was unbalanced for a while, right? It was all about school and trying to build a business. I didn't have time for any of the extracurricular stuff. I didn't go out a lot. I just didn't do those things. And so, it's okay. I think when you look at goal setting, everybody's going to, most advice is going to be that you have to be well-rounded and balanced. And, after a while, that becomes more important. But when you're trying to build something, when you're trying to make a massive change in your life, you're going to have to be unbalanced for a little bit. You just are, right? And, I'm good at saying this maybe, but, David Goggins, go look at David Goggins. I'll put a video up of him talking about being unbalanced, and he'll hammer the point home. But I say this because I don't want you to feel bad if you have to be unbalanced for a little bit. I don't want you to feel bad if you have to turn friends down for, Friday night or Saturday night or, a lunch or whatever. You got to be able to find the time. Success does not happen between the hours of 8 and 5. It just doesn't. It's the time you put in, the extra time you put in. And so, especially some of you that have shared with me looking to start your own business or switch careers or whatever it is, you're going to have to be unbalanced for a little bit. So, look at the areas of your life, decide where do I want to make the biggest impact in 2022. But there's a great way to do this. And, you start by writing things down, not putting them in your phone, actually writing things down. And there's an important piece here. When you write things down and you're seeing it as you write it, it starts to become more permanent. And so think about the areas of your life that you want to impact, and then make categories for that, right? So if you say, okay, in my business life, what are the 3 things I want to accomplish in my business life? Is it a promotion? Is it starting a business? Is it, what is it? What are you trying to accomplish? And then think about, okay, financially, what are some of the things that I want to accomplish financially? Do I want to start investing? Do I want to make sure that I invest every month? Right? That I'm going to invest every single month. Is it that I want to pay off a credit card, that I want to pay off a student loan, that I want to be debt free? What are your financial goals? And write those down. How much money do you want to save, or how much money do you want to invest in 2022? Right? That could be a goal. What are your financial goals? Physically, what do you want to accomplish physically? Do you want to start working out? Do you want to work out? You see, start working out is not a great goal because it's hard to measure. So you would want to put something like, I'm going to work out 3 days a week, right? Something that you can actually measure. This is why, most people who do New Year's resolutions, they don't work, right? So you got to put down something measurable. I want to work out 3 days a week, 4 days a week. If you want to run, sign up for a race. It commits you, right? Put some money down on the line, sign up for something. I know a lot of y'all are in Dallas, run the Fort Worth half marathon. It's a great race, happens in February. You get to do it early. You check it off your list. You start the year with some momentum. You've already accomplished something, right? And that's the other important thing about some of these goals. You might have a big goal, but put in some small goals so that you can accomplish them and you start building that momentum, right? One of my biggest business goals years and years and years ago was to get the money that I managed up to $10 million. That was my number one goal 3 years in a row. 3 years in a row. But I had other smaller goals that I was accomplishing that allowed me to build some momentum. You can set mental goals. Do you want to meditate? Do you want to practice mindfulness? I know a lot of us have stressful lives. What are you going to do to take care of your mental health? That's also important. That is something else that you need to make sure that you are thinking about. Your mental health is just as important as your physical health, right? So mental health, financial health, all of these things, make a big difference in your overall life. So, mental goals. I want to read the Bible, whatever it is. You just have to put that down so that you can start to track it. There could also be family goals. If you have kids, if you have a spouse, a significant other, I want to make sure I take them on a date once a quarter. These are small things that you can accomplish, but sometimes it's, if you don't write them down, then all of a sudden it's June and you haven't accomplished anything, right? So I want to, maybe it's buy a house, pay off my car, whatever it is, you have to start writing these things down. So looking at these different categories of your life become very, very important. And then also looking at how you're going to reward yourself. So maybe you have travel goals. I want to go here, which I know is hard in the time of COVID. It's hard to say I'm going to take a trip to, I don't know, Europe or wherever, right? You never know with lockdowns. But, putting that stuff down. I want to travel to here. I want to go here. Putting that, putting those goals down. So just kind of breaking your life up into different sections. And then once you've written down these goals for these different sections, then you can say, okay, looking at this sheet of paper, what are my top goals? Like what's the top things that I want to do, right? So, you look at your business category, financial category, physical category, and you're looking at these and saying, okay, with everything that I have on the sheet, what's my top 5 list for the year, right? What's my top 5 list for the year? And you can put that on a sticky note, put it on your bathroom mirror so that every single day when you wake up, you see it, and every single day when you go to bed, you see it, right? Because when you start thinking about these things, when you're thinking about it all the time, good things happen because you'll start to hold yourself accountable. So one of the cool things I want to do, because I don't know every single listener personally, but I know enough of y'all that I'm going to give you a week to work on this. And then I'm going to call you and we're going to talk about some of the goals that you've set for yourself. And I'm going to do a compilation episode with everybody's goals. I won't use your name. I won't use your faces or anything like that. I'll just use your voice. And we'll talk about, some of the goals that you've set for yourself. And you should set some stretch goals. Like I said, some of mine have taken me 3 years to accomplish. But the things that the person I had to become and the habits I had to develop in order to make that happen became allowed me to do a lot of other things as well. And so that's really what it's about, is the goals that you set. I mean, you're going to have to become a more disciplined person sometimes to make that happen. You're going to have to become more diligent, more conscious of the choices you're making to really hit some of these goals. And that's, the good habits that you have to have allow you to be able to hit these goals. And when you're making a conscious effort to do it, then good things start to happen, right? So it goes back to John Wood, never mistake activity for achievement. And this goal method that I just gave you, Darren Hardy of Success Magazine, this was one of the things I read about 15 years ago that I've used ever since. So I think if you go look him up, you can probably see some of that stuff still. I'm sure he has it somewhere, but having a methodical way of setting your goals matters. Only 3% of people set written goals for themselves, right? Set written goals. And then what we'll do is next year we'll discuss it every month. You should look at, okay, what did I accomplish this month? What in January did I get done? You should also come up with the reading list. What are some books that you want to read next year? And I got a word of caution on this. So don't just set a reading list and put as many books down that you can and try to chew through as many books as you possibly can so that you can say that you read, 20, 40, 50 books next year. There's nothing valuable about going through 50 books as fast as you possibly can than if you should have done 10 where you actually got something out of it, right? So that becomes my word of caution for you on goals is don't just put something down so that you can check the box, because at the end of the day, that's not going to be helpful either. So it isn't just about checking the box, because you need to enjoy the journey. You need to enjoy, part of the reward of hitting a goal is the process that it takes to get there. So, like when I run a marathon or whatever, it's all the runs in between. It isn't just the final event. And so as you get older, you learn to savor this a little bit more than you do when you're younger. And so, I kind of hesitated on telling you to write a reading list, but, put down 10 books that you want to read next year. Maybe it's one book a month. But if you're going to do that, and especially if the book is substantial, if it has great lessons or you're learning something, right? Try to read it a little bit slower so that you actually savor what you're reading. You can highlight things, write things down, or if you're listening to it, take notes, whatever it is, but do it in a way where you're really absorbing the material and you're not just trying to go through as many books as possible so that you can say that you did that. So, for example, I like to read biographies, so I've already looked at some of the biographies that I want to read next year, looking at different finance books I want to read. I mean, whatever it is, business books, putting in some books that are just fun for me, like that are, I consider mental candy, if you will, but also just having a plan of what you're wanting to look at. I do love a good biography. I think it makes me, feel not alone when you read about other people who have struggled and how they overcame those struggles. Some of the best ones I've ever read were like Ulysses S. Grant, Robert E. Lee, and just, listening to the struggles that people had back when times were not so good. But like this next year, like Will Smith just came out with a new biography. I want to read that. I haven't got around to that. That just came out, a month ago. So that's one I'll definitely do. If they read their own biography, like on Audible, I will generally listen to the biography because it's wonderful. If somebody if they do an autobiography and they read it, they know where to put the emphasis and the cadence of their voice and things like that. Makes it far more enjoyable. So I'll look to see that. But find some good books that you think that you can read from, learn from. Even if it's just one or two things. I mean, reading a biography on Vanderbilt or Carnegie or Rockefeller. I mean, those are all good business books. But even, going outside of that, even if, reading something from somebody else's industry, I got to tell you, one of the things I've been watching right now on Disney Plus is the new Beatles documentary called Get Back that shows kind of the band struggling right before they broke up. It's like they're all on different paths, but they don't know it yet. I mean, that thing is pretty fascinating if you want to just kind of music, look and see kind of pop culture, what they struggled with back in those days. It's pretty interesting. It's like almost 8 hours long. I haven't made it through all of it, but a couple hours I've seen have been pretty, for the most part, pretty interesting. I fast forwarded a little bit of it, but it's pretty amazing. So look at, things that are outside of your normal scope. How can you make yourself a little bit more well-rounded? One year, one of my goals was to read a book on every major religion, right? And just to have a better grasp on other people's beliefs, why they believe what they do, and just to kind of round myself out, because all I had ever heard was Christianity and that. And so I wanted to basically be kind of a student of the world and just read about other major religions. And so, that could be a goal for you. I mean, just different things. It can be whatever you want, but it's something that you need to put down in writing and make sure that you're able to track it. Okay, so you have your assignment for the week to come up with goals. And then if you want to be featured in the upcoming podcast, send me a message. You can send it on Investor Professor. Just DM me and we'll get you slated to the schedule, if you will. We'll figure out a time to do it where you and I will talk about your goals, and then we'll just put a compilation together. And so that I think it's important for y'all to hear what other people's goals are, because I think it'll help you, right? It makes you feel like we got a little bit of a community here, if you will. So that's the assignment. We're going to have a productive week. We're all going to work on these. I'll even talk to you about some of mine when we do these phone calls. but I think it'll probably be one of our best episodes yet. So have a great week, and I'll see you next time.